My name is Saurish Hegde and my new book Arjuna the Greatest Lover is out. A special mention to Om Books and Suhail Mathur for getting this book out, making it more accessible to you guys. This book is about a phase in Arjuna's life where he decides to understand more about himself, try to find the truth. So he decides to go on a journey, trying to explore more about life and try to learn and unlearn some things. So in his journey, he meets some women, he falls in love with them, and they become his future wives. So he has a very unique and special relationship with each of his wives. So this book is a retelling, a reinterpretation of that journey. So do check it out. It's available on Amazon and at your nearest home bookstore. Thank you.
A very good afternoon to all of you. Welcome back to Studio One. All writers want their work of creation to be published, but the publishing industry has its own priorities and policies on choosing what to publish and what not. We want a little peek into the secret, and so we begin our next discussion, Sales versus Content, the Ultimate Truth, with our guests, Miss Alexandra Pringle, Miss Milee Ashwarya, Mr. Vishal Soni, and Mr. Dipankar Mukherjee. Alexandra Pringle was Editor-in-Chief of Bloomsbury Publishing for 20 years and she is now Executive Publisher. Her authors include Margaret Atwood, Susanna Clarke, Richard Ford, Esther Freud, Elizabeth Gilbert, Abdul Razak Gurna, Khaled Hosseini, Jhumpa Lahiri, Madeline Miller, Colum McCain, Anne Patchett, George Saunders, Camilla Shamsi and Patti Smith. She is a patron of Index on Censorship, a trustee of the Charity Reprieve and an honorary fellow of the Royal Society of Literature. She has been awarded honorary degrees of Doctor of Letters from Anglia Ruskin University and Warwick University. Milee Ashwarya is the publisher of Ebury Publishing and Vintage Groups at Penguin Random House, India. She has been responsible for establishing and spearheading the publishing vision and list at Penguin Random House, India for over a decade. A TEDx speaker, she is passionate about issues relating to working women and parenting. She was awarded the Women Achievers Sanman 2017 for publishing by the Global Organization of People of India Origin. CEO of Vishwakarma Publications, Vishal Soni has a passion for business, a commitment to IT, and the processes that are vital to keeping an organization fighting fit. He began his career as a lecturer in management and was assistant professor at Vishwakarma Global Business School till 2012. Vishal brings a keen awareness of branding and e-marketing, compliance and consumer behavior to his role. Mr. Dipankar Mukherjee will lead the discussion. Dipankar Mukherjee is the publisher and director of Readomania, one of India's youngest traditional publishing houses. Under his leadership, the house has produced over 100 books in just about 5 years, with some critically acclaimed titles as well. He is an engineer and holds an MBA degree from IIT Madras and had been in the corporate world for 9 years before becoming an entrepreneur. Let's start the discussion, handing over the virtual mic to Mr. Dipankar Mukherjee.
Thank you, Renu. It was a pleasure. Hello, Alexandra, Milee, and Vishal. It's lovely to be on a panel with you again, and I'm looking forward to a very exciting discussion. We've been given a very interesting topic of sales versus content, which comes first, almost like a chicken and egg story. But let's try and delve a little deeper and see what comes out of it. And I'll straight away jump into the first question that I have for the panel. Does content drive sales or does sale drive content? I'll start with Alexandra and come to Millie and then Vishal. Alexandra.
Hello, it's lovely to be here again in Pune, if not physically, virtually. Well, I always take a bit of an issue with the word content because I like to talk about books rather than content. And I talk as a publisher of literary fiction and nonfiction. And so I speak from, in a way, quite a confined area. And I would say that really none of us know that there are publishers who go chasing after sales, as in they like to follow what appears to be doing extremely well at the moment and commission more of that. And then there are publishers who follow their own taste and try and lead the way. So there are very many different ways you can swing this particular cat. And I think the only thing we know as literary publishers is that we really don't know.
Okay, that's a very, I would say, straightforward answer that we don't know. But what would you say about this, Millie?
Well, I completely actually hear what Alexandra is saying, and we don't like the word content really, because we like to think of books and stories. Um, but I also feel that I think it's ultimately it's the power of the book and storytelling, or for nonfiction, the idea that a book is trying to bring forth, and if that is strong, if that's good enough, then I think the book will sell automatically, well, in most cases. um, there of course is the question of timing as well, that we talk a lot about in publishing, and whether we are publishing the book at the right time or not, and that also determines its success. But I do honestly, in my heart, believe that if it's a good book, it's a good story, then sooner or later, I think readers will pick it up and they will appreciate it, the writing and what the author is trying to do in the book. Um, Having said that, I do feel that, once a book is doing well, you do need a very strong sales and distribution machinery to keep on selling it over the years, right? To keep it alive, to let it backlist. There is a certain amount of sales strategy that goes into it. So it starts, I think, from the book, but to keep it alive and keep it going and to sell, I think, millions of copies, eventually, I think you do need the support of sales and distribution.
Okay, very well said on that. Vishal, what is your opinion on this?
My opinion, as both of them have said, I agree to both of them. But what I feel personally, what has done good for my books is, both things go hand in hand. The book has to get a display so that the sales happen. So whether it is online or offline, we have to have the book, getting at all places. So even a best of the books would initially require some push in the market so that it reaches people. And when it reaches people and starts working on it, it is just a matter of fulfilling the orders, and maybe a little bit of here and there. Again and again, we'll have to, keep in top of the mind that this book is there, this is doing good, and people should always recommend this book. So, and many of our titles we've gone in and non-fiction as specifically, if it is written well and the title is apt for people, the audience, I think it goes on and on. So
That
content and sales both have to go together. The book and the sales drive, they have to go together. It cannot be separate.
a well balanced answer on that ground from all the panelists. That leads me to my next question, and the whole world would need to know this. What are the publishing priorities now in the so called new normal? Many say we are out of the pandemic, many say we're in the middle of the pandemic. Whatever it may be, what do you think are the publishing priorities right now? Keeping horizon of, let's say, one next 1 year. Alexandra, let's begin with you.
Well, I think that one thing that we've learned is that we have to be immensely agile because we literally don't know what the next day is going to bring. So we have to be decisive and we have to act imaginatively and quickly. But I think that after these last 2 years, the two of the things that I think are most important are the care that we take of our staff. I think that it's been extremely difficult for everyone personally, and I think that working in this strange and disconnected way has really taken its toll. And then I would also say care of authors, because as we know, authors have very isolated lives anyway, even in a normal world. But where they can't come and meet with you and meet physically with their audience and feel connected, they need much, much more care than I think they ever did before. So I think attention to all those things is really important, publishing houses.
That's a very important priority. We're talking about our most important resource, that's our people resource. That's a very good point. Millie, what do you have to say about priorities?
Well, there have been so many learnings for us in the past year, and I don't think anything is normal. So, we are trying. I'm a people's person. I love to meet my authors, the agents, interact with them. And there's a certain chemistry that comes out of the relationship of the editor and the author, and the energy in the room when you meet people, even if it's just a short meeting. So I really miss. I actually really deeply miss meeting my authors, traveling, brainstorming with them, and with my team as well. So I think one of the biggest priorities for me in the coming year, and even right now, is to keep ourselves self motivated, because we are not seeing each other as often as we would before the pandemic. Um, we also, like Alexandra said, that how to stay connected, and with our authors, how to do the best we can in the given circumstances for the book. So I think this is one of the biggest priorities. Secondly, I think it is also the visibility, the reach, and the success of books. That has to continue, and how we do that through digital marketing, because a lot of sales in India right now is happening online on Amazon and other platforms. So how to make sure that our books don't suffer, the hard work of authors, publishers, and the entire team doesn't go to waste. So we have to make sure to find new ways of promoting books, and yes, the third thing I would say is to publish for the times as well. And in India, besides, I mean, the pandemic, of course, is something we're living through, but there's also a lot happening in terms of, the changing politics, current affairs, and the social milieu. And since books are a reflection of our times, I think it's very important to publish about the world that we're living in, and find new voices to tell these stories.
So practically pretty much all of it. I mean, in the 3 points that you've covered
I do
almost
keep on
everything.
thinking about all of this. I think, I think at
Yes.
the same time. So I think a lot about starts with my authors and books and the team, and then how to sort of uh, make these books successful and visible. And then of course what kind of books, and the acquisition strategy,
Pretty much
and
all of it.
ideas that we.
Vishal, what do you have to say? What are your priorities?
My priorities, things have changed a lot in this pandemic. Bookstores, reaching books, physical distribution of books, they have all been affected. Readers have been scattered, they are not getting it in the bookstores, they are not able to get it online also in many places during the pandemic. Now they are getting everything depending on the government norms. So my priority right now to make books visible, whether it is ebook, audiobook, or through some other channels, wherever I feel the reader is going. I think I'm looking for those channels where I can reach to the readers. So
Okay, that's a very
that is the biggest priority.
Very interesting takeaway from Vishal. What he says is reaching out to customers in the times of pandemic becomes a priority. Obviously, that drives everything that we are doing. So that's pretty much in summary, we have people priorities, we have content priorities, and we have acquisition priorities. Coming to acquisition now, has the content that is being acquired now changed post pandemic, or is it absolutely the same. Is there any variation that we have seen which would not have happened had the pandemic not been there? Alexandra, we begin with you.
Well, I think that how we commission, what we commission changes all the time, and it changes according to the world that we're in. So, yes, it is, but that in a way is no different from the life before, and it's fascinating to see how the world responds. And in the case of Bloomsbury, we found incredible backlist sales on certain titles that have surprised us or happened as a result of world events. For example, Rennie Edo Lodge's Why I No Longer Want to Talk to White People About Race was a direct, that was a backlist title. It had done well, but Black Lives Matters happened in the middle of the pandemic and it became a #1 bestseller for us. And then another extraordinary backlist success has been Madeline Miller's The Song of Achilles. And that was TikTok, that was teenagers. And it's a novel for adults. It's a very serious literary novel, but it was adopted by young people. And that shows the power of the digital and of social media and how we all have to publish into these new platforms. The publishing world was anyway changing and becoming digital. That was there, but the pandemic just speeded it up and made it everything that we do, and the way that we market and the way that we sell is facing in that direction. How?
Okay, that's very interesting again. Now, coming to you, Millie, obviously I do have the same question to you as well. That have your commissioning priorities changed? But we at one point in time, you had picked up a lot of celebrity books. Okay, over the pandemic, do you see that? Did you see that continuing, or did you change track on that aspect as well? So, on one, your commissioning priorities, and two, your commissioning of celebrities.
So I think in terms of a list, we always want to have a combination of because I publish both literary and popular books. There's always a combination you're looking for in the list shape, and there are new things we're trying to do every year. So I think that remains the same. But in terms of trends over the past year or so, what I've seen personally is that we are doing a bit more on mental health. I think that we got lucky, and we got at least two very good books on mental health that we are publishing. One was out recently. It's called The Truth to the Bravest Person I Know. And there's a new book coming out in the next few months. It's called Chemical Khichdi. And it's about being bipolar. And I think these kind of books also are finding more resonance given the current times and what we're dealing with. We're also publishing a bit more of poetry. We're still a bit selective, but we are publishing two very exciting books on poetry. One, which was a global project for the pandemic called Singing in the Dark, that came out last year, got really rave reviews. So there's a mix of, I think, subjects that we are dealing with at the moment. We of course have a very successful list in terms of memoirs and autobiographies, wherein I think some of the celebrities have been writing. So last year we did Neena Gupta's book Sach Kahun To, which was a huge success. But I don't really see these as celebrity books because we sign them up only if they're writing about something that they believe in or they're known for. So if it's a celebrity in the field of health, then it is a book on health, right? Written by a well-known person, but I don't really see it as a celebrity book because if they don't have anything interesting to say, then I don't think I'll publish them. Right? So I think that's also very important. That ultimately it's about getting a good book out of the author. And like I said, it's a mix of books. Self-help has grown a lot for us. Our business list is also doing very well because people are particularly investing. And this is a trend, I think, in India currently. A lot of books on investment, finance is doing extremely well at the moment. And maybe it's because people are thinking about the future more seriously. But it is a current trend, and we have signed up 2, 3 very good books in this genre as well. Um, and spirituality, self-help. I mean, I'm not talking about literary fiction now because that of course is a very special list. And in fact, we just released one book yesterday by S. Harish called Adam, and I'm quite excited about it. Um, but I see a lot of non-fiction genres also growing, and some specific areas that I mentioned. I hope will do well and continue to do well next year as well.
Great. That's a lot of good inputs, at least for the people hearing us on this session, because a lot of authors would like to know the genre that are working well. Coming to you, Vishal, what is your response actually?
My response is, what I feel personally, people, because of this pandemic, the work from home concept as is working right now everywhere. Still, work from home is going on. Very few places people are going to office and working, right? And because of this work from home, number of hours of work is increasing. Instead of 8 hours, all those things. So people get very less time to read, and they are looking for shorter versions of reading to fulfill their the reading thing. So what we are now prioritizing in two things. One is to find a good self-help book, right, as Milee Ashwarya said, and which we are doing also. Many of them have come up and they are doing good. And then short story books is what we are doing right now, and we seeing to it that these short story books are sold online through ebooks and other channels, story wise. And plus, now that we find some time on all those things, people have gone to OTT also. So another priority that we are looking after is some good content which could go on OTT also, because many of them have now finding some video uh, books or something of that sort where they can find some content which would help them to do this thing. So this is what we are doing.
Okay,
So
that's a very
self-help and short stories.
a good combination. I would see a lot of people being very happy with the word short story, because short story has never been a very popular genre in India, at least. Um, Now, I wanted to understand
See, you
something
get
in a very
nowadays you get stories which are sold for 10 rupees also, no? So there are
that's
many
true.
other ebook vendors who are going by story also. So that
Yeah,
makes a lot of
including us.
difference.
We've developed an online platform which is selling stories on a story by story basis. Coming to the
Huh.
questions again, I have a very particular pointed question for all of you in terms of specific sales tactics that you have observed or executed during the pandemic and will continue to do so post pandemic that has worked for you. Sales tactics, not strategies, that have worked for you. Alexandra.
Well, I would revert to what I was saying earlier, which is using the digital space, and we have that has become the sort of centre of it all. But also, taking care of independent booksellers who've suffered a lot, particularly early in the pandemic, before they worked out how to sell without the shops open, which was so difficult for them. So I think that kind of cooperating with them and doing what we could to help them. But otherwise, really, it's very much taking advantage of social media and of digital advertising, whether it's press or in newspapers or obviously on Amazon and so forth. So we've all had to get very good at that. And back to what's selling. One of the things that I found very interesting this last year, not just with the Song of Achilles, is that fantasy seems to be selling extremely well. And maybe because people want to be out of this world that we're in and in a different world. But another great bestseller for us has been our Women's Prize winner, Piranesi by Susanna Clarke, and also the young writer Samantha Shannon. And so I think that being imaginative about how we market is the way that we look after our sales, and appealing to people's imaginations with fiction, very much so.
Interesting. Millie, what would be your tactics? Or what have been your tactics?
Like Alexandra said, we all moved, from physical to digital marketing, very fast. And it was quite a learning curve for us last year. But what worked for us was, I think, the focus that we put in, not only in terms of the AMS activities or getting the right keywords, paying more attention to the blurbs, because covers, whether it's a good online cover or not, since people were buying so much digitally, and whether that appeals to them or not, I think became even more important. We also have, we sort of restructure our entire marketing team, and we have data scientists and people who really helped us, over the period of the pandemic, and even now it's I think growing. The learning is growing, and it's really helped discoverability of books online. So that is a very important component of marketing now. The second learning, I think I would say, and which I've seen happen, is to really like find the right platform for the right author or the kind of book, right? So, for example, we do a lot of work and promotions on LinkedIn for our business books, but there are some authors, are commercial or popular fiction authors. Their promotions we've seen work very well on Facebook. Similarly, where you want to drive conversations and get people in, and so books on current affairs, politics, serious nonfiction. I think Twitter is also a medium that we use. So I think it's not about doing everything for every book. It's also finding about the right platforms for promotions to, expand the reach of the book and getting to the right audience.
I completely agree about metadata, which is a word that I'd never even heard a few years ago. We're all having to learn about it. It's incredibly important, and it feels like it drives almost everything at the moment.
Yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
And it requires a lot of thinking as well. It is not an easy task.
Yeah, but editors would normally run away from these things, keywords and metadata, but there is no escape now. We have to live with it, and we have to find ways to sort of get better at it.
Great. Vishal, what's your opinion?
Yeah, my opinion, again, I'm being the last one to ask the question, so everybody have answered all the questions. But the problem for me was were different in pandemic. The reason behind
No,
is
not a
that
problem.
Maharashtra.
What I wanted to know from you, Vishal, is that
That's
a
what I'm
specific
coming to that point.
aspect.
I'm coming to that point. We tried all. I am coming to that point. We tried all those points, whatever we discussed, online tactics and everything. It didn't work for us. It didn't work for us. The reason people should know that also, that it didn't work for us, because in this pandemic, Pune, Maharashtra was hit the most. So Amazon was also not working. There was no pickups. There were no drops. So we couldn't do anything. We couldn't do anything unless until things start up, and then we had to go for private couriers and all those things. So it didn't come under essential commodities. So one thing that should happen is this book should come under essential commodities, so that we can have some other channel to sell. We can have some other channel to sell, because bookstores were closed, Amazon not coming for pickup. How do we sell the books? So none of the tactics worked for me. But however, whatever we learned is that in future, now the 100% lockdown won't happen. It is understood. So AdWords, good keywords, where the visibility would come up, the sponsored ads and all those things. So that would work for us, I think. And now I'm, in fact, after your question, posting this question, I was just thinking, why not go to all those people who are supplying groceries online? Nowadays, people have got habit to online groceries. So if I'm reaching there, they have all these people, fixed online portals. There's so many which have come up now in those areas. If we reach them and find out, this is what I'm proposing. I don't know whether it will work or not, but I think reaching customers would be easier and faster. So more and more
There are
platform,
some.
but from Amazon and Flipkart, we have to have more like Kobo, or maybe now Meesho is coming up. There are so many other platforms coming up. Leaving these two platforms, you have to add more platforms now.
I completely agree on that front that we need to democratize the space, online space as well, so that people can have more options, and more importantly, publishers can have more options, so that
I just
and
wanted to add
yeah,
something. Vishal, I don't know if you tried this, but last year we started selling our books on Milk Basket, which is
I
a
was
very
about to say that Milk Basket is selling.
so we did a tie-up with them early last year, just around the lockdown, and we sold and we continue to sell a lot of books through this app, which is started out mainly as something for grocery and daily need things, but we sell books there a lot. And we did a lot of partnership, for we did partnership with independent bookstores, whether it was Bahari Sons, etc., for home deliveries, because they had a list of their loyal clientele and readers and book buyers. So we started making book bundles for them, offering special prices, promotions, and there were delivery channels like Denzo who were also delivering besides their own network. So I think that also helped us a little bit in the pandemic.
Our
No, I think
problem,
that's very
was, wherever our office and stores were situated, just half a kilometer, there was a police station. So we couldn't go there at all. So, ठीक है, however, I take that point and I'll contact Milk Basket and, we'll find out some ways.
absolutely.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Do you think a question again to all of you? Our expectations from our authors have changed. Do we now expect them to do a little bit more than what they were doing earlier? So probably whatever we were expecting them to do earlier, post pandemic, are we saying authors please come in, do a little bit more than that, because we are all trying to come out of this whole situation? What's your opinion on this, Alexandra? Again from you.
I think actually they can only do less because they can't travel. And there are very, very few physical events now. And that used to be such a big part of what authors did. Obviously, particularly touring the UK, but also going to international festivals, including Jaipur and Pune and so on. It's changed their lives a lot. And what's the up thing is that digital festivals have adapted and they've gone online, like this one. And the upside of that is that some authors prefer not to travel. So it depends on the author. Some love to get around and they love to meet people and they love to get out of their houses. And some, like Anne Patchett, who we've just published, so happy to stay at home. So for her, it's been a wonderful thing because she's published her new collection of essays and she hasn't had to leave her hometown of Nashville or her bookshop, which she runs there. And also in the case of Susanna Clarke, who was terribly ill over the last 10 years, she was able to do a lot more than she would have been able to normally because she could contribute to all the festivals from her home and do it in her own time and very carefully. So it very much depends on the author, but I think that we are expecting less of them physically than we did before, and we always wanted them to write in newspapers and contribute articles and so on. But it has become much easier. And for example, my author Abdulrazak Gana, who just won the Nobel Prize, has been able to do worldwide events immediately. Including in his home of Zanzibar and so on, all from his home in Canterbury. So that's been an incredible thing, and probably he has done more physically than he would have had to because there's been so much demand for him. But it's just it's a different kind of demand, and it's a different kind of life. And I think there are upsides to it, as I said earlier. But also, I think there are real sadnesses for authors who like to be part of the community.
Okay, that's very interesting. This time I'll go to Vishal first and then come to Milee. So Vishal, what do you say?
Yeah. See, I personally, as Vishwakarma Publication, would always like, from authors to have some unique ideas now. Unique script, unique book, unique concept has to be there. So we have now only looking after those books only and rejecting all others. That is first thing. because it has to be something different than whatever mainstream was going on. Second thing is, I would like them to be socially active, social media wise active, not going in market and talking to people physically, but social media wise. There are many authors who would publish, but then their social media liking is less, or they're only on one channel, or all those things. So we would, yes, like them to go on social media and promote their books, write blogs, articles, so that more and more people could understand this is what the book is about. And yes, wherever they go, they should only talk about their book. Whomever they meet, they should always talk about their book. That is what I want. Rest, I think platforms are there and everything happens automatically. But unless they speak, it always becomes a marketing. "Arey, ye to marketing kar rahe hai." So, it is when they speak, people get more attracted towards their writing and they buy the book.
Okay,
They have
that's very
pleasure of
interesting.
getting the things from them.
Miri, what do you have to say?
Well, our authors have been quite understanding through the pandemic, and I think we all sort of, uh, done things together. So it's a combination of what the publisher can do and what the author can in the given times. And of course, we're still not doing any physical events, but if the author wants to travel and they want to do book signings, etc., we're still helping them out and organizing it. Um, and a lot of it is happening digitally. But then again, I think it's important to use the time wisely and to participate in activities and spend time where you can actually connect with lot more people, not just a few, and then spread the word about your book. So it's different for different books completely, and there are professional speakers who are also authors, So they, of course, still are continuing with their lecture circuit, and they're doing a lot of digital programs and also selling lots of copies of their books. But I think there are also some shy ones, and authors would rather spend their time writing, and we also push them to promote their books a bit more. So it's a combination of what the publisher can do through now the tools that we have available digitally, and get the author also in front of the audience and reader, and get them to connect, because ultimately I think all readers want to hear the stories behind the stories, and they want to connect with the writers and know more about them. So that's the engagement, I think, that you want to facilitate through the author. But like I said, the authors have been very, very understanding, and they've also they've also been trying to learn new things through the past year.
That's interesting. I think on one side we have Alexandra who says that probably going to do a little less, and on other side we have Milee and Vishal who give us a very alternate view of saying we don't expect them to do more, but this is our list of expectations from them. That's quite comprehensive and very interesting to look at. What's happening on that ground. Before I move on to the audience question, and that's a lot of them actually, I have a very global question to all three of you, and one question for the Indian publishers. First, the global one. Where do you see the publishing industry go from here in the next 4 or 5 years? And this time, let me start with Millie.
Oh, well, I'm quite a positive person, so I do want to sell lots and lots of copies, publish debut voices, discover new voices, and make these debut authors, writers successful. I think that is something that I've always been very passionate about. Debut authors, new books. Also, I think in India particularly, if I talk about India and the market that we operate in mainly, I think there's a huge percentage of younger readers now, readers between 15 to 35. I think there are millions and millions of people. So I do really want to tap into this huge category of readers and make them readers and make them serial readers and dedicated loyal readers of our authors. So I think that is a segment that I really want to focus on in the coming 5 years, and publish the books that I like to publish and also publish for them.
Lovely. Vishal, what do you have to say about the next 5 years?
Uh, I think after this pandemic, uh, some kind of reading habits have been developed. May it be in ebook format or may it be in some other way. People have started reading it. Whatever they could get at home, all their old books have come out and they have reread the books because new books were not available. And I think next 5 years would be good for publishing industry because things have changed. People have understood now how the importance of the book because it gives lot of what we call good feeling. I think after book reading, so the businesses would be good. I'm very positive
Great.
about
That's a
it.
very positive point. Lovely. Alexandra, what's your opinion?
Well, I think the key word is diversity, and diversity in two specific ways. One is actually the form of publishing, and that is obviously ebook publishing has become a big thing and has become a very important part of our lives, but also audio publishing in Britain and in America, I don't know about India, is really taking off. And I think that a lot of people with their busy lives they just love to listen to their books, and they're not abridged, they're the full book and people will commit to them, and I think that that's really interesting. And then diversity in a much more important way, which is diversity of voices at last. Certainly in Britain, the British publishing is becoming less parochial, and I'm happy that Bloomsbury has always been extremely international as a publisher, and it's something I'm very proud of. But it is marvelous that at last the whole world is doing that and is really attending to different voices from all over the world, from many different people, and that I think is an exciting new thing for the future.
Great. I think that's a wonderfully positive way to put forward, and very happy space to be in publishing. As a matter of fact, Alexandra, if you could excuse me, I have a question for the Indian publishers now.
Yes.
To both of you, Milee and Vishal. And Vishal, I'll begin this one with you. Ruskin Bond had once said India would soon have more writers than readers. Do you think that has already become a reality? And if yes, how does that impact our industry?
See, I'll share my experience. I don't know the larger audience of the entire India, but the writers have not increased. Yes, the number of writers have increased. Means if you compare writing and reading, I think writing has not that much increased. But yes, number of writers have increased. People have now started sharing their experiences of their work, the thing that they have done, their life experiences, their own memoirs. Yes, because they belong to a certain segment or certain area, geographical area where they are known, famous, and they have started writing and they want to get it documented. Many of them have started documenting their own family history and everything. In some of the way, the books are coming. So that is one very good part of it. However, publishing point of view, I feel diversification with traditional publishing as one part, hybrid publishing where another part, and self publishing. So if we cater to all these departments separately with a separate department and wing, I think it should work. So that's a good sign right now. Don't leave
Okay.
business is what I feel.
Great. That's a very, very valid point on that ground. Millie, what do you have to say about this?
Well, I think all of us, me, Ruskin Bond, all of us would want many more readers than writers. I think we do need more people in India, particularly. I think to start reading, even the population. I think our sales still have a huge potential to grow. So while it's like I said, I've been very passionate about publishing new voices. I think it's important to grow the readership and have many more readers always than authors.
Great. I think we've had a wonderful discussion so far, and it's time for us to take some audience questions, and there are many. Let me begin with Vani Kaushal. Vani Kaushal is asking, what part of sales is author driven and what part of it is publisher driven? What are the expectations that publishers have from their authors marketing wise? Uh,
What part of
Vishal,
sales
you want to
is
take it?
author driven? What is publisher driven?
Millie, what about you? Let him get the question around. Yeah.
I think it's a combination. Like I said, I always look at it as a team effort. While the author, it begins with the author, and it's the draft that they write, but through the editing process, we try and polish it, and we try and give it the best shape possible. Work together with the author, try and publish a good book, and then through our expertise in sales, marketing, etc., try to make it successful. So it's a journey that we take together with the authors, and we go hand in hand. I think I wouldn't say one has to do more or one has to do less. I think it's always the author's book, but I think publishers can be the best champions for these stories and new voices and books. So we want to stand by our authors and try and get the book available to as many people as possible.
Okay. This was the Indian point of view. I'll come to Vishal for the alternate view as well. But Alexandra, is it something similar in the UK and the US as well?
Yes, I think that maybe authors are having to become more professional, just as in a way we are as publishers. And I think that's quite daunting. I mean, for example, our marketing department might say to me, will you ask your author to do a 2-minute video presenting their book? Really, without understanding that doing a 2-minute video is a massively difficult thing to do, and it's a huge ask, and we're all having to sort of learn how to perform in these different ways, in order to get to our markets, in order to sell our books. And I think we're kind of doing it hand in hand, as Milee said. We are doing this together, and we are finding out about this new world, but it has its challenges, I will say.
Okay. Vishal, I bring the question back to you, but I'm going to add one more layer to it. There's another question which is similar. Santosh Bakaya is asking, is the publisher doing enough marketing for the author? The author is expected to be an entrepreneur, all right, but does not know the tricks of the trade. So the question, the first one and second one
Uh,
combined to you.
Yeah, I will tell, as we had rightly said, it works as work. We have our own experiences, our own channels, our own platforms where we are selling. And over the years of experience would help us guide the authors where all, they need pitch in, because a single-handedly efforts will not work. So we, as a publisher and author, both have to work together. So I think single-handedly both cannot work. If I only promote the book, there would be some limitations. I don't know. There could be, but and only if author is promoting and publisher is not doing anything, again that won't work, because the book has to be made available. The book has to reach the audience, the readers, and all those things. So they have to work together. Now it is author who has to decide whether he or she feels that they are doing more than publisher. I think that thought might come. This is the thought process, I think, which every author would say, हमने तो इतना सब कुछ किया. But I think if a publisher is not able to sell book and he has published a book, then his loss is more, I feel. And every publisher would like to sell all his books, only then he would get profit. Otherwise, there is no profit. So I think they have both of them have to work together.
Okay. I think I want to take a question from the festival director herself, Manjari Prabhu. She says, does not this one. I think I'll take the other one first. If you have to choose between sales and content, what would you choose? What is the ultimate truth?
I think that was the
Okay.
first question you've already asked and which we have answered it.
Yes, that's why I said this is a better question to answer. So who takes it first?
I would just like to just have one example, which is going back to Abdulrazak Gurnah, because I published him for 20 years because I believed his books were beautiful and important and should be read by everyone. And they weren't. They got wonderful reviews, but the sales were very modest. And I kept with him because I believed in him. So I was publishing him only for the content. And now, of course, he's selling hundreds and hundreds of thousands of books around the world. So you live in hope. Obviously, not all your publishing can be like this, otherwise you go bankrupt. But you know, when I took on Kamala Shamsi, she was a very young writer who I thought had a lot of talent. But it wasn't until her fourth novel when I thought, this is it. This is really going to do it. And so often it's a waiting game, and publishers have to be very patient. And I think also, to dip back into the last question, I think often authors don't know the work that goes into their book because it's all quite hidden and publishers don't talk about it. But for every single book that's published, so much work is done by so many different people. And I think if they were really taken through every stage, they'd faint.
Absolutely true. Totally mind-boggling. Yep. Okay, so let's take another question now. Bipin Chandra Chogule is asking, Dipankar and Milee, why do publishers fall short in promoting most books they publish and work only on a few top ones? Millie, you want to go first?
Well, I don't think that's necessarily true. Not the way that I see the list, because I spoke about it briefly earlier too. That these days, we have to find the right channels and right platforms to get to the right audience for a particular book. So it cannot be the same plan, the same marketing plan for every book. It will be different for different kinds of book, but we do try and do what we feel is best for the book in discussion with the author, and of course get their ideas on board as well. Um, but I think the visibility, of course, if it's a big book, then there are lots of copies out in the market as well. You see larger pile-ups and more displays. So you do get a sense that, these books are getting maybe, pushed more by the publishers. But the fact is that they have higher print runs, so they have higher visibility in terms of retail. But I think there is a lot of hard work that goes into making smaller books bigger as well, because I personally have had so many examples of books that we bought at very low numbers, but eventually sold extremely well, and they keep on getting reprinted. So and that is also always a hope that we have as publishers, and I love you get like a kick out of doing that, because you sort of who says wrong, and we really believe in our idea than some authors, and we were able to do this with their books. So I think definitely the plan is different for different books, but we do honestly try and do what we think is best for it.
Absolutely true. I think the only thing I would like to add here is that, see, there is a huge commercial consideration that we cannot ignore as publishers. So as Millie mentioned, that the larger the project, the bigger are the monies and the stakes involved. And if the project is big enough, then you typically end up seeing it a little bit more than the other books. It's not that the other books are not promoted. The other books are also promoted, but you just tend to have a little bit more focus on certain large ticket projects, which could be make or break for you. So that's the way we look at it. But yes, all books are our babies. That we are all in equally passionate about them because we put our money on them. We publish them at the end of the day. So
In
why would
time,
we?
there is so much time. I'm just
Yeah,
maybe right now speaking from the editorial point of view, but there's a lot of time that we're not talking about. Money, of course, is a very important aspect, but there's so much time, effort that goes in the entire process, and sometimes we spend years, to publish a book. So I think it's a commitment. It's a serious commitment for us too, and we try. I mean, I want all books to do well. Think like other
absolutely.
publishers.
Vishal is laughing away. Would you have a point to add to that, Vishal?
it's, as I told earlier also, it is every book has to sell, only then publisher makes money. I am very upfront on that.
Yes, true, very true. Alexandra, what's your opinion on this?
I completely agree with Milee. The time that we put into it, and the love that we put into publishing our books, and it's often in terms of the editors, they often put more time into the smaller books because they know that that's what's going to get them to work, and getting them out to people, sending them to people, talking about them. Whereas the bigger books, the marketing and sales people can run with. So there are many different ways that you publish a book, and a lot of it is like hand publishing with a great deal of care. And we don't do it just to make money ourselves. Publishing is not a great way to make money. Banking is probably a lot better. We do it because we really care about it and we believe in it. And I think that it's important for people to realize that that's why we're doing it.
Wonderful. I think on that positive note, we have absolutely run out of time. It's been a pleasure talking to all three wonderful people, from fellow colleagues from the publishing world. Alexandra, Milee, Vishal, thank you so much for taking time out. PILF, Manjari, Sonia, and the entire team, thank you so much for organizing this for us. It was lovely having all of you here. Audience, you were great. There were such lovely questions coming up. So overall, I think thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was an insightful discussion. I'm sure the budding authors out there have some of their doubts about publishing cleared. Thank you, Miss Alexandra Pringle, Miss Milee Ashwarya, Mr. Vishal Soni, and Mr. Dipankar Mukherjee for being PILF guests. The next session will start at 4:15 p.m. Please join us in 15 minutes for the conversation, Sanskrit, Taking the Past into the Future.